I am going to talk about two theorists across the channel. In France, one in France, Lefebvre, Henri Lefebvre. The other one across the channel in England, but he is from Jamaica, actually, a Jamaican British sociologist, Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall. Okay, let me start with Lefebvre. But before I start with Lefebvre, why do I combine these two? I combine these two, because I would like to expose you to two traditions of sociology, contemporary traditions, approaches, the British one or Anglo-Saxon one, actually, from England this time, and continental one from France. There is a similarity between them, although they are studying two different subjects. Now, Lefebvre is studying urban sociology and everyday life. And in urban sociology, he is focusing on production of space, whereas Stuart Hall is focusing on cultural studies, language, mass media. But the similarity between them, although their focus is one very material, urban space, Lefebvre, the other culture, language, very non-material, but there is a similarity between them. They both include the relationship between knowledge and power in their analyses. Now, knowledge and power, as you will remember, are introduced into social sciences by Foucault, one of our theorists that we have studied earlier this semester, as well as in the second semester, because Foucault is one of the theorists, social scientists, philosophers, sociologists, who has influences in many other fields and theories and approaches. Okay, now after this introduction, I can come and focus on Henri Lefebvre. Now, Lefebvre's life encompasses almost the whole century, 20th century. He is born in the beginning of the century, 1901, and died in 1991. So this 90 years of 20th century, as I said, he developed a sociology, a critical sociology, focusing on urban life, urban structure, urban planning, and everyday life in urban framework, everyday life. Although he started his work, like myself, by studying the villages. He conducted many studies on the villages in France, like another French sociologist, Bourdieu. As you remember, Bourdieu also conducted research on his village in order to have a sociology of sociology perspective about his approach, about his positioning in the research field. You will remember this. This is in order to be able to make a participant objectification. Okay. Now, Lefebvre, as I said, focused on production of space. Now, production of space is a book which emphasizes how human societies, especially after industrial revolution, parallel to industrialization, space, the settlement places are transformed in such a way that we can conceptualize it as if it is being produced in a factory. Huh? Now, we are very familiar with the Industrial Revolution, how goods, durable goods, or all kinds of goods, how they are industrialized. And they are being produced through machines or machine and human labor combination. So far, maybe from this the 21st century onward, maybe we will have not humans, but robotic control, but still there will be human intelligence, although robots will be artificial intelligence. Anyway, during 20th century, it was human-machine. Through human-machine interaction, everything is being produced, including agricultural goods. Now, agricultural goods are produced from land, but production of agricultural goods from land is being organized like a factory. Now, Henri Lefebvre is saying that settlements, including villages, but especially urban settlements, are being produced. Urban space is being produced. Actually, a similar approach also we have seen Anthony Giddens. Anthony Giddens also, if you remember, Anthony Giddens also says that we don't have nature anymore. Nature that we think we encounter is also being transformed by human action in such a way that it is produced environment. So they have similarity. Now, again, we found a similarity between the French continental approach and the British Giddens approach. In this case, they are both emphasizing with how with industrial revolution, human species started to produce their own lived spaces, spaces. Of course, from the settlement onward, from nomadic hunter-gatherer bands, remember 10,000 years ago, more than 10,000 years, perhaps 12,000 years, from Göbekli Tepe, we started thinking that it is earlier than 10,000 years. Human beings settled on villages, and instead of living nomadically and sometimes only using shelter, which is transitory, they started building houses which are permanent. It started actually with the settlement. But when those villages turned into cities, urban revolution, and actually Henri Lefebvre has a book titled as Urban Revolution. Now human species started to build their houses and also their streets, settlement, how these houses are located in relationship to the central part of the city, where usually there's a stadium, a theater, and administrative buildings, etc. Already, we see this produced environment, production of space with urban revolution, but with industrial revolution, the production of space enlarged itself in such an extent that it is beyond our imagination. Indeed, and we look at cities with skyscrapers and the built environment or produced environment is colossal and is alienating, actually. Human populations, when living in these produced spaces, environments, and their life started becoming routinized. Routinization was already coined by Max Weber, as you remember from your classical sociological theory class in the second year. When Weber was writing, that is the beginning of the century, 20th century. There were already, of course, cities, metropolitan cities. Zimmel also talked about the social psychology of human beings in metropolitan life. Now, Henri Lefebvre is expanding critically about this routinized environment and how it is alienating people because now this built environment is such that we encounter it as if it is not being built by human beings. If you remember, we encountered the concept of reification. What was the concept of reification? When we start thinking of social structures, we encounter reification when we are talking about social structures. Now, social structures are objectified through interaction by human beings, by agents, by actors. They come together. It's a collective production, these structures. Now, in Giddens, for example, it is not objective, but in Bourdieu, and there is an objective structure. But if we start thinking about those structures as if they are independent of human beings, which produce them and which reproduce them, and their existence depends on everyday reproduction by human interaction, then remember we call that the process of reification, forgetting that structures are produced by human beings. Now, when we think of urban buildings, skyscrapers, it is very easy to forget that they are built by human beings. Now, alienation, remember also the concept of alienation. What is the concept of alienation? These buildings or the machines and everything is being produced again by human beings, human agents, by workers who are working there collectively through a division of labor. But they are produced and they're independent of them out there objectively, and sometimes they are against them. Sometimes some machines or can be used against the producers, and alienation and reification. So these are two concepts that Lefebvre develops when thinking about urban life, and how people going from metro, the underground, from underground to their work through underground, and then coming back again through underground home. This home to work routine through metro, and that is also already how alienating and reified. And then you get out of the metro underground, and you encounter all these buildings, all these built spaces. Actually, Lefebvre is trying to awaken us sociologically, or put people actually, that city is a space of interaction and transformation. Now that in the city, all these social relationships, if we have to fight against reification, at least sociologically, while we are doing sociological analysis, we should constantly remember social relationships. And then economic structures. Of course, all this production is economically organized, economically and technologically organized. So actually, not only economically and sociologically, but Lefebvre is introducing law, juridical aspects, legal aspects, and also planning aspects, governmental aspects. How the city, when we are conceptualizing the city, he is thinking of settlements in terms of geographical, historical, juridical, legal, and cultural aspects. Now, through this type of an analysis and approach, Lefebvre is shifting the center of, or shifted, during 20th century, shifted the center of urban sociological analysis of the cities from Chicago school-centered emphasis on ecological approach, human ecology approach, a more Zimmelian, Weberian human ecology approach of Chicago school and American urban sociological approach is being shifted into a more geographical, historical, cultural, and juridical and economic analysis of cities by Lefebvre. So he introduced more relations of production, classes, social relationships into the analysis. Plus, as theories emerged, like Foucault's theory, he included power relationships and knowledge aspects into the how it enters into planning, into designing the cities, the settlements, how power and knowledge interact, and how actually the city is lived by different sectors of the population. So he conceptualized three perceptions of space, three different approaches to the space, actually. One, he calls perceived space. How space, this urban space, or regional space. When you think of region, you are not only thinking of urban buildings and streets and etc., but also you are thinking about highways, large highways interconnecting the cities to each other. And of course, these highways going and passing by the settlements, urban settlements or rural settlements, etc. When you have to perceive the space in urban framework and in regional framework. So when he talks about this perceived space, it is professionally and now there is also a second space, professionally and theoretically perceived space. So there is one perceived by ordinary people, by everybody. The second one is professionally by urban planners, urban sociologists, etc. Professionally, or architects. Of course, architects are dealing with space while they are building all those buildings, buildings for living and buildings for administration, all kinds of buildings. So there is a perception of space by professionals and sociologists, theoreticians. He calls them in French, okay, le conçu. Le conçu is professionally and theoretically perceived space. Whereas perceived space just by itself is le perçu, perceived space. But of course, for most of the people, it is a third aspect of space is lived space, where people live with each other and interact and spend their working lives and leisure lives. So the lived space in French, le vécu. So le perçu, le conçu, le vécu. In Lefebvre sociology, these are introduced into urban sociological analysis from the language that it is being conceptualized. Usually, that's what takes place. You know, when an approach in a language is developed, usually the theoreticians develop their theories in their own language, and hence what they do, they start from everyday expressions of that topic, that subject, in their culture and in their language. They start from that, and then through research, more and more research, and perhaps on the basis of that research, they develop some projects like Lefebvre do, some projects of implementation, implementing the developed framework, conceptual framework. So it starts from everyday life, that through abstractions or discovering already the grounded theory. And remember, from grounded theory, but in urban sociology, you don't. It is not enough to have only grounded theory, but more abstraction, because we are dealing with macro sociological structural settlements, transformations, projects. So the level of abstraction of these theories are beyond everyday life, but the abstracted new terminology, new concepts are given by the language of the theorists. So this le perçu, le conçu, le vécu comes from French because Henri Lefebvre conceptualized this in French, being a French sociologist. Okay, now as I was saying, so we are talking about a space of production or production of space. Of course, this space, now space is being produced, production of space, but this space is also for the production of all other productive firms, institutions. So the space, into this urban space, various forms, organizations of production are being distributed. Usually, production spaces for production are outside of the center of the cities, removed from residential places. But unfortunately, when a factory is being established outside of the city, those working in that factory start being settling there, and a new satellite city emerges. So the cities continue to grow outward, and then production spaces are relocated to into further areas, so that they will be removed from residential places. And then this continued. How I'm sure you studied this in urban sociology. You had, I think, a class in urban culture or urban sociology. So this is the dynamics of how the new centers, new expansion of settlement into new centers, and how they are all of them organized together. Only in this way you can have a city like Istanbul, 15 million people living. Sometimes this is in Indian cities, or in Tokyo, for example, that the population of a city goes up to 30 million. Incredible, 30 million people within a metropolitan space, which is being totally produced, a produced space, all linked with each other through routes, through all kinds of transportation vehicles, and of course with ICT revolution, information communication technologies revolution, and there is also an online interconnection, not only a spatial material interconnection, but also a virtual interconnection through this urban through information communication technologies revolution. So it's then cities are spaces for production. Of course, it is a space for exchange. Actually, originally, the cities were for administering of the villages around and for exchange, commerce. Huh? Their original establishment was for the and the state is emerging as there are more and more villages, and as population is being differentiated into classes. So 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, the state emerging, commercial relationships emerging, and the cities housing them. And of course, as cities emerge, the buildings are being built, the craftsmen. So gradually, non-agricultural production and non-agricultural activities. Now, exchange, commerce is a non-agricultural activity, and administration, a non-agricultural activity. So, although 90% of the population are living in the villages, that 10% are differentiated, of course, from the also. In addition to these activities, there are religious institutions and buildings being built. But in contemporary world, so many other non-agricultural activities are being added, and even agricultural activities are being planned and industrialized. So everything are industrially produced, plus with ICT, with information communication revolution, there is actually an informationalization of industrial production and also agricultural production. And there is a new, a third revolution, actually. The first one was agricultural revolution, from which the villages emerged. The second one, urban revolution, okay. And then industrial revolution, and now information communication technologies revolution, and hence informationalization of all production, transportation, all activities. In the same way that actually agriculture was being industrialized, industrially dominant, in some countries, like some African countries, or in some Asian countries, the majority of population might be still in agriculture. But that doesn't mean that in that country, agricultural production is dominant. No, what is dominant is, during 20th century, it was industrial type of production organization was dominant. But now, with information communication technology revolution, industrial production is informationalized, and the same way agriculture, even in that, say, in India or in other countries where the majority of population, even if they are in agriculture, because in each phase of the development of production, communication, transportation, the more there is a dominant, there is a dominating approach to production, like after industrial revolution, it was the industrial relations of production that is being dominant in all production. And now informationalized. Okay, now, of course, this space are also space of consumption. Consumption, from, you will remember from Bauman, and the contemporary society is called a consumption society. Consumption reached to such a level that production, this informationalized production, is actually geared, remember this from Bauman, to consumption. Now, say during 1920s and 30s, production was dominant over consumption. But with information communication technologies revolution, it is being reversed. It is being reversed. Now, factories, firms produce their cars, for example, in accordance with the consumers. Who is going to buy a car? Which type of car, with what type of characteristics is being first specified informationally, and then it is being produced. The increasing domination of consumption over production. Okay, now I would like to round up Henri Lefebvre's approach to sociology with his conceptualization of moments. Now, he says that urban life, industrially dominant in his time, dominant urban life, is so routinized, so alienated and reified. In such an atmosphere, human beings can have some moments. Now, these moments are non-routine inspiration. While you are talking with your friend, or when you go to the forest, taking a walk, this is a non-routine inspiration, a kind of reaching emotional clarity, the moment, a self-presence, feeling you exist, you live. Henri Lefebvre says human beings can increase their moments of inspiration, of emotional clarity, of self-presence, of love, friendship. Okay, I think with these moments, now there was in a film, I don't know whether you watched that film, Aile Arasında. One of the players there had a T-shirt where it is written, collect moments, not things. Collect moments, not things. Now, a consumption society is things-oriented, consuming things. No, it says, instead of focusing on things, of course, buy what you need, but increase your moments of revelation, of inspiration, of emotional clarity. I think I can finish this by now citing, by saying that you can read about Henri Lefebvre, as in many other theories you do, from profiles from contemporary social theory. But instead of, while you are giving reference, don't give reference to Turner and Eliot, but to Rob Shields, because Shields has written the chapter on Henri Lefebvre, not Turner and Eliot. Turner and Eliot just edited. So remember this, whenever you are using the chapter from Turner and Eliot's Profiles from Contemporary Social Theory, your reference is the writer who written that chapter. In this case, it is Rob Shields. The second source I included here, you can read that if you are really interested. Stanek Lukács. Stanek wrote a book on Lefebvre. The title of the book is Lefebvre on Space. And the subtitle is Architecture, Urban Research, and Production of Theory. Okay, now with that, I will stop here. Now I will ask you whether you have any questions about Lefebvre's approach. Okay, are there any of you wondering about some concept that Lefebvre used, or an explanation that I made, a comment I made? You might ask about those. As far as I can see, no, you are listening. Okay, then I will go to next theorist, Stuart Hall, across the channel from France to England, but actually to Jamaica, this faraway place. He's born there, and maybe you might have heard of Jamaica. Maybe you might heard of a singer. There are singers actually from Jamaica. Bob Marley is one of them. But Stuart Hall is a sociologist, being educated in Jamaica. And then, like many colonies of British colonies, people migrate to England, to London, and Stuart Hall migrated to London in 1957. So when he's born in 1932, so how old was he? 25 years old. Okay. And it's interesting, although he came from outside of England, from Jamaica, but he had such an impact on British sociology. Actually, not only British sociology, British cultural analysis, linguistic analysis. Actually, he became one of the founders of an interdisciplinary field, cultural studies. Cultural studies in Birmingham. Okay, he came to London in 1957. Now, how many years later? In 1964. So 7 years later, he was one of the founders of cultural studies approach, interdisciplinary cultural studies approach in social sciences, which included, as I said, sociology, anthropology, linguistics, economics, history, all these fields. If you remember, this type of interdisciplinary approaches exist also in natural sciences now. natural sciences also had complex studies. Remember from Wallerstein, Wallerstein talked about this cultural studies and complex studies in social sciences, one, the other in natural sciences. And the future of social sciences is in these interdisciplinary approaches, because again, as you remember from Wallerstein, we are entering into a new world, into a new historical system. Okay, world system, a historical world system. Now, the founder of the interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary even fields is Stuart Hall, coming from Jamaica and establishing in 1964 onward the Center for Cultural Studies, CCCS. This is very famous. You know, during 70s and 80s, we used to refer to this CCCS, Center for Critical Cultural Studies. Center for Critical Cultural Studies. And it is then an invention, building, construction of a new field, actually. Now, here, what Stuart Hall and his friends did was to combine the culturalist paradigm, which was dominant at that time, in England especially, coming from anthropology, and structuralist paradigm. If you remember, again from your second year, or when we're talking about Bourdieu's approach, how he was trying to go beyond structuralist paradigm, or Foucault and being post-structuralist. But in 1960s and 70s, structuralist paradigm was very dominant, and also a culturalist paradigm was emerging. Now, Stuart Hall and this group of social scientists combined them and tried to go beyond them. And in this case, Stuart Hall used from the concept of hegemony from Gramsci. Now, what is hegemony? Hegemony is actually, it has a similarities to legitimation, the concept of legitimation of Max Weber. If you remember, Max Weber defined legitimation, how the ideology of dominant classes is being accepted by dominated classes because of their continuation. This was a reformulation of Weber's approach by Wallerstein again. Remember that. Now, Gramsci introduced this concept of hegemony into Marxist theory in Italy, and it is an Italian invention, actually. Now, hegemony is a class, a party dominating the society by taking their agreement, their voluntary, in a sense, voluntary participation into the acceptance of economic, political, ideological structures for some time at least. So in order to analyze for example, 1960s and 70s Britain, and actually starting second half of 70s and 80s, there is this transition from welfare state into neoliberal capitalist type of economy and state with Thatcherism. So parallel to that transformation, to that shift, there emerged also an approach, the critical cultural studies approach, tries to understand how Thatcher, for example, in England, in Britain, established a hegemonic domination into British public, and she and her party was elected consecutively 3 times. This is now Stuart Hall's approach tried to explain this approach. Now, actually, Gramsci was trying to explain how that took place during 20s and 30s in Italy. Now, Stuart Hall and his friends brought this approach into England, into Britain, and this led to the emergence of this critical cultural studies approach. Now, of course, being from Jamaica and himself being a migrant, he focused on the concept of post-colonial hybridity, and identity, cultural identity. Now, how identity is not just a simple learning your history, and usually the Black people that migrated to England, like Stuart Hall himself, or the American Blacks during these 60s and 70s, they started excavating, like Foucault's archaeological studies, trying to find out through archives their histories, from which country they were brought to America or to England, or now presently in post-colonial era, how people migrated to the center from the peripheral countries, especially in the second generation migrants, started to think about their identity. Who are they culturally, socially? Now, Stuart Hall proposed that it is a hybrid identity, and instead of conceptualizing identity in an essentialist way, no, identity is culturally, through discursively constructed. So it is actually a construction of a position, how a collectivity or an individual is positioning themselves or himself, herself, in the narratives of the past and of the present. So narrative of the past will take you to your original, from whichever place you came. And of course, there are maybe your mother tongue, your family, your neighborhood, the network that you are positioned are bilingual, most likely, using the original language from where you migrated, and the language of the country, in this case, English they are using. So their language is bilingual, but their identity is hybrid. It's combining two cultural identities. But actually, while establishing this critical cultural studies, what Stuart Hall focused was mass communication. And through mass communication, a hegemonic domination is being established. So how are the codes, how are the messages are produced? Production of message, production of mass communication knowledge to be communicated to the masses. The production of knowledge and its reception, how it's being received by the viewers in the television or the listeners. So here, there was a four-stage theory of communication. Maybe you have already are exposed, at least some of you, if you have already taken a sociology of mass communication class in sociology department, or some elective courses from communication studies from Faculty of Communication. You might already know this four-stage theory of communication: production, circulation, use, and reproduction. Okay. Now, Stuart Hall says that each stage, now this is Stuart Hall's contribution, each stage has a relative autonomy of its own, that is, each stage has its own determining limits, that is, relative autonomy. At each stage, imprinted by institutional power relations. And this is the hegemonic aspect. Institutional power relations are imprinted at each stage, not only in the production stage, but also in circulation stage, in the use of the messages that is being produced and being used, and its reproduction. Now, so actually, what is he saying is that communication circuit, it's a circuit. Communication, there's a communication circuit of production, circulation, use, and reproduction. It's a circuit. Now, at each stage, we said, there's an imprinting of institutional power relations. And in this communication circuit, and what does this mean? It means that patterns of domination is being reproduced at each stage. Now, here, actually, what he did, one of the innovations of his approach was that he inserted semiotic paradigm about the analysis of the meaning in linguistics. It's a development from linguistics. Now, this linguistic semiotic analysis into an anthropological social analysis, social framework. So with this approach, it is not only a textual analysis. Usually, semiotic analyses are contained, are restricted into text analysis of books or newspapers or television videos or films or whatever. But Stuart Hall's approach, this integrating power relationships, how all this knowledge is not it is not only a semiotic meaning and linguistic production, but that there is knowledge involved in all these discourses, and knowledge cannot be thought of independently of power. Remember Foucault. So he integrates Foucault's approach to this mass communication analysis, and hence his analysis, this synthesis allows textual analysis as well as ethnographic research, ethnographic field research. Not only all these mass communication, newspaper, television material, but also going to the field, to the neighborhoods and studying there. So through this approach, he tried this hegemonic approach, hegemonic conceptualization, brought a solution to the question of pluralism. Now, is this a cultural pluralism? Now, if there's a cultural pluralism, there is no domination, hegemonic domination. So he said that this is not pluralism, but it is polysemy. Now, messages in a culture, in a society, have different meanings, plural meanings, which is not pluralism, but polysemy. He calls that polysemy. But in these discourses, there is a structure in dominance. Power relations are being introduced into discourses. Okay, I think this is maybe an introduction to Stuart Hall. Now, he has an article that's published, I think, in 1973, Coding and Decoding, where he formulates this approach and this four-stage theory, and how the message is being received not in a simplistic way. In this decoding article, he analyzes three types of decoding. Now, the dominant one, usually the viewers of the television, decode more or less what is being coded at the production stage. Now, it is called hegemonic decoding. Now, the hegemonic power relations, discourses in the production stage, already there is a discourse in dominance. Now, if more or less by the majority of the population, it is being received without any opposition, being accepted, that's hegemonic decoding. And that is the initial definition of hegemony, actually, by Gramsci. But Stuart Hall introduced a second and third way of reading or decoding, listening to a message, or reading a newspaper article or news. The second way is a deliberative decoding, he calls it, deliberative decoding. In deliberative decoding, the hegemonic message is being received, but adjusting it to the local conditions. Now, what is being said is true, or I am accepting it, but now we have to modify it, this aspect and that aspect, so that it will fit into our local situation. So accepting it, but arguing with it, changing it a little bit, but the main meaning staying. Now, there's a third way of reading the messages or decoding the messages. It is oppositional decoding, challenges critically what is being received. Now, what type of power relationships are involved in it? What type of class interests or political interests are encoded into this message? And so whenever in each message a public interest is being pronounced, actually the oppositional decoding says, no, that is not public interest, but interest of such and such group, such and such class, such and such party, or whatever. And they critically, the oppositional readers or oppositional decoders receive the messages in an oppositional way, and they they try to analyze what kind of interests that might not be public interests or to their own interest. I'm trying to identify what kind of interests are being encoded. Okay, this was a 5-6 page article, but it was very powerful in the field of communication studies and in the field of cultural studies, in order to understand the new era that started during 70s and 80s, the neoliberal era that extended itself into 21st century, actually. Okay, I think I will stop here, and again I will ask you, do you have any questions